The second Secretary of Development, High Commission of Canada, Barbados, and Ms. Shelly-Ann Forrester. Thank you. Representatives of the Division of Gender and Family Affairs, our distinguished panelists, Ms. Dr. Erin Brown and the Honorable Kerry-Ann Eiffel, leaders and advocates from organizations of persons with disabilities, civil society, youth organizations, and academic partners, and of course, our fellow Soroptimists joining us from across the region. Good morning. We appreciate your presence and partnership as we join forces to advance gender equality and disability inclusion. On behalf of Soroptimist International Grenada, it is my great honor to open this regional webinar on gender equality and disability inclusion under the theme Advancing Equality and Disability Inclusion. Advancing Equality through Inclusion, Advocacy, and Rights. Today we gather in a shared purpose to ensure that every woman, every girl, every young person with a disability has the freedom and opportunity to live, lead, and thrive. We are especially pleased to welcome youth leaders, advocates from organizations of persons with disabilities, gender equality champions, government stakeholders, health providers, UN partners, and our sister Soroptimist clubs across the region. So why are we here? Across our societies, the resilience and brilliance of persons with disabilities, particularly women and girls, continue to shine even as they navigate barriers to education, employment, leadership, and sexual and reproductive health services. These barriers are not a reflection of ability. They are a reflection of systems that must change. Today is about committing to that change. So, Soroptimist International Grenada's commitment as host, we believe deeply in education, empowerment, and enabling environments, which is the three pillars that drive the work we do every day. Through partnerships with the UNRCO's office, CUSO International, Global Affairs Canada, and the Division of Gender and Family Affairs, we continue to strengthen programs that uplift women and girls and expand exclusion for youth with disabilities. This webinar is another step in regional collective action. Our purpose today, throughout the dialogue, is to highlight exemplary leadership from across the Caribbean, amplify youth voices as drivers of change, identify concrete actions to improve access to inclusive services, move beyond awareness to advocacy, accountability, and action. To our youth participants, we are especially happy to have you here with us. Your voice matters. Your ideas are powerful. Your activism is already shaping the future. The Caribbean needs your brilliance, not someday, but right now. And in closing, I invite us all to listen with empathy, engage with curiosity, and act with courage. Let us champion a Caribbean where inclusion is not optional, where every woman and girl, with or without disabilities, has the right to justice, dignity, opportunity, and leadership. Together, we can remove the barriers, Together, we can transform systems. Together, we can advance equality through inclusion. Thank you, and please do enjoy the dialogue ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Alexis. Dr. Erin Brown, my apologies. At this point, I'm putting on a different hat. I am the moderator for today, but I am also the focal point for the UN Disability Inclusion Strategy with the Resident Coordinator's Office for Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean. So I'm putting that hat on now, and I'll just share very very brief remarks. I call today's event part of a movement to create wider visibility and amplify voices around the situation of persons with disabilities. A movement Grenada seems to be well on its way with, because this gathering today builds on several United Nations initiatives and United Nations supported initiatives across the Caribbean, reaffirming our shared commitment to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and the UN Disability Inclusion Strategy. I want to use this opportunity to reaffirm that the UN Disability Inclusion Strategy is important to the United Nations work on gender equality. On this, as we shorten it, is the UN's commitment to making sure that persons with disabilities in all their diversity are not just included, but are at the center of everything we do. It is important that it starts with staff first. So we are focused on a lot of capacity building and supporting staff with disability mainstreaming in programming and in our operations, looking at accessibility in our communications, in our UN common premises. But when we talk about diversity, we must remember that women and girls with disabilities often face other layers of discrimination, amplifying their marginalization and vulnerability. UNDIS recognizes this intersection, acknowledges that persons with disabilities are not a homogeneous group, and due consideration should be given to intersectionality. So what have we achieved for 2024 with this UN Disability Inclusion Strategy? We have an accountability framework, which includes a scorecard, and the scorecard for 2024, we haven't got the results for 2025 yet, shows that 64% of our indicators meet requirements, 4 indicators approach requirements, and only 1 indicator is missing. Of course, this is a clear improvement from previous years, and where we are seeing, although we are reflecting steady progress in leadership, planning, and partnership, there are some gaps, and of course the gaps, one of the gaps is in data. We need to do more to make sure our data tells the full story, and that the data is disaggregated data. We need to make sure that all of our spaces or venues in procurement or UN spaces and services are truly accessible. And we must keep building skills and awareness of our staff so that inclusion becomes second nature, not an afterthought, so that we could change our own mindsets as well, at the same time as we're offering that support to countries. Looking ahead, the way forward is clear for us. We must keep raising the bar, working together, learning from each other, and holding ourselves accountable. UNDIS gives us the tools and the roadmap, but it's up to us to make sure that we achieve the scorecard, not just for us, but for the persons who we serve. And that girls with disabilities are not just included, but are shaping and benefiting from every decision and every opportunity. Over the past few years, the UN has made real progress. We've seen leadership on disability inclusion, stronger partnerships with organizations of persons with disabilities, and greater efforts to make our programs, workplaces, and communications accessible. Some of you may have attended our joint program or program consultation. It is a program that aims to focus on inclusive education, strengthening how we gather and use data in relation to persons with disabilities, but also looking at capacity building and leveraging the media, training the media more so they can support us with the advocacy work that needs to be done in terms of persons with disabilities. So the majority of our key targets are not just being met, but in some cases they are exceeding expectations, such as the consultation. This year alone, the UN has engaged as one United Nations persons with disabilities across Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean in Grenada's high-level policy dialogue and Sir Optimus side event, consultation, rolling out of an advocacy campaign designed by a person with disability from Grenada called the Higher Ability Campaign. And some of you in this room may be aware of it or may even be involved in it. The campaign was launched on the 3rd of December. We have held a webinar with employers last year. Governments and UN agencies across Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean. I could say across the Caribbean because we had persons signing in from Bermuda, Jamaica, and so on. And we hope to do some more work with Barbados later this year and some of the other countries under our purview. I want to thank you for this opportunity. And at this time, I put back on my moderator hat and I will ask Ms. Shelley-Ann Forrester, the Senior Manager of CUSO International, to deliver some brief remarks with us. Thank you. Over to you, Shelley-Ann.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Are you hearing me clearly?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Good morning again, everyone. It is indeed a pleasure to be a part of this regional webinar and in partnership with the Gender and Family Affairs Division, as well as Sir Optimus International. We're pleased to be in collaboration and partnership over the past couple of years under the Blueprints for Gender Equality project being funded by Global Affairs Canada. Today's webinar, in terms of the theme, which looks at advancing equality through inclusion, advocacy, and rights, really is here to highlight how we can even strengthen much more rights-based approaches in terms of social transformation across the Caribbean. And we know that not only government leaders, policy developers, but civil society organizations, development partners such as Global Affairs Canada and CUSO International plays a very critical role in advancing the rights of people with disabilities, especially as it relates to having equitable access to programs and services. I'm sure you all agree with me that it is our collective responsibility to identify effective solutions to empower people with disabilities and for them to live empowered lives with agency, right? Gender equality speaks to social inclusion, and to include people with disabilities not only speaks to equitable access to services, which is a right, but also ensuring that they are able to claim their rights as well as navigate various systems from the government standpoint in terms of services and programs, but also to just fully contribute to society. Again, the Blueprints for Gender Equality Project has been working with the Gender Affairs Division and Sir Optimus International with the kind support of Global Affairs Canada over the past couple of years to amplify the need to strengthen the services that are provided to people with disabilities and to reduce the inequities that they face. We recognize that they must be included and reflected in policies, in spaces, as well as even the capacity building of service providers to respond adequately to their needs. Today's webinar really serves to advance the necessary dialogues among regional players to identify changes that are needed and how we can actually align even much better to the sustainable development goals of equity and inclusion. So CUSO International and Global Affairs Canada, we remain committed to breaking barriers and fostering inclusion, really, and working with our local partners such as Sir Optimus International to really building a Grenada where everyone is able to live with dignity and access all the services and ensure that we're not leaving anyone behind. So thank you again. I did want to deliver very brief remarks. I'm mindful of the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I hand over to Jacinta Alexis to give us an overview of gender equality and disability inclusion in context. Ms. Alexis.
Thank you. Can I ask for the PowerPoint to be projected, please? And whilst we wait on the PowerPoint to be projected, can we also turn it into slideshow mode? And can everyone identify in the chat which organization they're representing, please and thank you, and country? That would help us for the analytics. All right, so I'm on. Thank you so much. So it is my pleasure to provide an overview of what we're doing here today, but we'll want to look at it from a Caribbean context. Next slide, please. So over 85 million persons in Latin America and the Caribbean live with disabilities, which it's a little bit more than 14.7% of our regional population. And that is a pretty big number when you look at it. And when you came into the room, you would have seen a video we would have done on inclusion and the weight of exclusion. And normally what we do is think of disability as in amputation, or blind, or you're in a wheelchair, but we don't think about the invisible disabilities as much. So you could be sitting right next to someone and not realize that they do have a disability unless they choose to disclose. So that's something we need to keep in mind. So in the English-speaking Caribbean, the recent estimates suggest that between 6.5 and 15% of the population lives with some sort of disability. And this data is dependent on how the data is collected, because if we are measuring, it needs to be consistent across the board. So the indicators need to be consistent across the board. So if it's not consistent, then you may have some errors. So let's say a rough estimate of 6.5 to 15%. And approximately 19.1 million children 0 to 17 years in Latin America and the Caribbean have disabilities. 19.1 million children, which is underlining the fact that there is a high number of persons, young persons, who are being impacted by disability in some form or fashion. So what the implications are for this is that persons with disabilities contribute a significant contribute significantly to the population of persons with disabilities. So inclusion should not be a niche issue, but it needs to be central to how we approach social justice, how we approach human rights, and how we approach sustainable development. Next slide, please. So when we look in examining the data that is being presented across the Caribbean from different spaces, jurisdictions, we recognize there were similarities in terms of barriers. And 4 major barriers that were identified across the region was education, employment and economic inclusion, poverty and vulnerability, and access to services and public life. And that's critical to note. If we look at education, depending on the type of disability, there's a high possibility that, or probability rather, that a child or youth with disability will not be able to complete secondary school, much less move on to tertiary education in comparison to their peers. And it's not just based on economic reasons, but social inclusion, etc., that contributes to that. For those who have proceeded and completed tertiary education, they may face challenges getting into the labor market based on attitudinal barriers that they are exposed to. This consequently can contribute to poverty and increased vulnerability. And that's something that we need to take note of and always look in. And I want you to visualize the physical spaces wherever you are at. How much of this do we really make accommodation for persons with and without disabilities? And that is something that we need to note as well. Because if we take a look at some things like having a meeting, I was recently in a meeting and I realized they did not take into consideration persons with different types of abilities or lack thereof. If you have mobility issues, if you have visual issues, they did not take that into consideration. And I understand where that is coming from, but it's why we need to continue to push the agenda of making sure inclusion is mainstreamed and not an afterthought. So without deliberate inclusion, disability magnifies social inequalities. And just think about our sister nation in Jamaica. Recently, they would have experienced Melissa. And no doubt that would have put enormous pressure on the infrastructure as well as the economic framework, etc. But how much so for persons with disabilities? Would that be measured, part of the measurement in the recovery process? Is something we need to lock in when we're moving forward. Next slide, please. So when we start thinking of gender and disability, it is actually an interesting discussion because when we look at women and girls with disabilities, they are facing additional challenges because of the intersection, the nexus of gender and disability. So it's overlapping and multiple forms of discrimination that they experience, not just in education and employment, but also when we look at how they face exclusion in terms of health, access to the health system, or social inclusion. So the data from our regional sources highlight that there's a higher vulnerability to violence, neglect, limited SRH access, sexual and reproductive health access, and economic marginalization among women and girls with disabilities. And despite all of this, they constantly remain underrepresented in decision-making and leadership roles, which contributes to further reduction of visibility, voice, and agency. So our key message here is gender equality cannot be achieved without centering disability inclusion. That is a fact we need to take into consideration. Next slide, please. So why does inclusion matter? Human rights is the right to dignity, the right to equality, the right to accessibility, the right to participation. Mind you, all of these are enshrined in our regional and international frameworks, including our constitution, the Grenada's constitution, and no doubt member states in the room today, it is also enshrined in your constitution. And it is also enshrined in the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. When we think of social justice and looking at inclusion, framing it from the space of inclusion, if we are working towards poverty reduction and improved resilience, reduced exclusion, we need to push the agenda of inclusion, because with that, we are able to achieve the outcomes that we look at. Well, it will contribute to achieving the outcomes we are looking to achieve. In terms of sustainable development, if we continue to exclude persons with disability, it actually goes in the negative direction of improving social cohesion, recognizing economic productivity, and our progress that we are trying to advance for the Sustainable Development Goals. So we will end up shooting ourselves in the foot if we do not embrace inclusions. And in terms of diversity and innovation, when you are working with, we usually take a deficit approach. We focus on what isn't there. But persons with disabilities actually focus on what they know what isn't there, but they add that enhanced level of reasoning and thinking and creative processes that makes the resilience that more sustainable, which helps us in terms of communities and how do we build stronger governance and policies, is when we have the voices of, because the lens, using the lens of inclusion allows us to now take a wider based approach, a human rights approach, as opposed to a very didactic approach. Next slide, please. So what are the roles of our organizations of persons with disabilities and advocates? Who are the people who are on the ground in the trenches, making sure voices are represented in mainstream development dialogue? So over 1 million people in the Caribbean live with disabilities and consequently face discrimination, exclusion, limited opportunities, and systemic barriers. However, OPDs and advocacy networks have been major players in leading the efforts to dismantle stereotypes, promote accessibility, and influence inclusion policy and legislation. And I could speak to on the ground here, we have key players like Grenada National Council of the Disabled, as well as Advocacy Inc., who have been major players pushing the agenda of inclusion and making sure they hold us accountable from stateside to ensure that we have policies and legislation to going forward. The participation of persons with disabilities themselves is also important because one of my colleagues from GNCD, Ms. Hilary Gabriel, would always ring that out to me. Nothing for us without us. And if we wanted to be truly reflective of the voice of persons with disabilities, their presence needs to be part and parcel of the dialogue moving forward. So the takeaway is inclusion policy must be with and by persons with disabilities and not for them. Next slide, please. So it is not all gloom and doom. We've had progress. Right here in Grenada, we have the finalized draft of a disability policy and strategic action plan that has gone to Cabinet Office for the preliminary screening prior to the Cabinet submission process to go to Cabinet. So we've had progress. So some of the examples of progress we've had thus far is there's a growing recognition from countries realizing that they need to adopt or update the national disability legislation and inclusion policies. Also, there has been increased visibility of inclusive education, social protection, and rights-based advocacy. Some of the persistent gaps, however, is there is inadequate data. And I know we keep saying data, but data is critical. All right, so we are still working on that kink of data, making sure we have this aggregated data that is up to date and reflective of the experiences of persons with disabilities across indicators. There's also a case of limited enforcement of policy for those countries that actually do have disability inclusion policy. We still need to work on having enforcement in terms of accessibility standards, reasonable accommodations, disability sensitive services, right? So we still need to work on that. And it's a work in progress. And we will get there, but we have to always be mindful to keep working at it, keep plugging away at it. And then we have the intersectional neglect. And when I say intersectional, it is not restricted to sex. It is not restricted to age. It's not restricted to disability. When we look at the experiences of persons from population from, let's say, the rural communities, and this is not just, remember we're speaking Caribbean, not only Grenada. We have to take into consideration that persons in the rural community experiences are much different in terms of access to services, employment, etc., particularly when you're a person with disability, to those from the urban areas. All right, so it's something we have to be mindful of. Next slide, please. So in examining the data, one of the things we recognize is there's certain emerging advocacy priorities and opportunities to be had. So a priority area, one priority area is inclusive sexual and reproductive health. And why it matters is because we need to ensure that persons with disabilities can access sexual and reproductive health, maternal health, mental health, and protection services. Youth leadership and empowerment. When we invest in our youth, so we engage in inclusive youth activism, education, and employment, it can transform societal norms and future inclusion. Permit me to share an experience last Thursday, which is December 4th, the day after International Day of Persons with Disabilities, Soroptimus, in partnership with CUSO International and the Division of Gender and Family Affairs, went to our youth, had an engagement with our youth population who are technical vocational students. And from all accounts, they are so engaged. They came up with some communication campaigns, which we will be sharing in due course when we have finished fine-tuning and refining, to move forward with, to support disability inclusion, because they do identify that their peers may be persons with disabilities, and they acknowledge it and appreciate the differences without ridiculing. So they are already of the mindset, the youth, if they are already of the mindset, how much richer society would be in terms of inclusion if this is expanded outward. Ripple effects, everything counts. All right, so in terms of accessibility in education and public services, it removes systemic barriers and it ensures equal rights to education, employment, and civic participation. In terms of representation and decision-making inclusion, it ensures that policies reflect lived experiences and it strengthens accountability and rights-based governance. And in terms of public awareness and norms change through media and advocacy, it helps to dismantle stigma and promotes respect, mobilizes support for inclusive legislation and social change. Next slide, please. So what does this mean for our webinar and our regional action moving forward? The webinar, the region's development and progress will be incomplete unless we continue. Can you go back to the previous slide, please? Thank you. Would be incomplete until gender equality and disability inclusion is fully integrated across policy, practice, and society. Our shared responsibility, and emphasis is shared responsibility, means that governments, civil society, organizations of persons with disabilities, youth, donors, media, we all must collaborate. And this webinar is designed to be a platform to share lived experiences and evidence, advocate for concrete policy and program changes, and mobilize youth-led inclusion efforts to commit to regional solidarity. Next slide, please. So the guiding principles for inclusive action includes nothing about us without us. It must address the intersectionality, the overlaps. We must also focus on accessibility and reasonable accommodation. Participation and representation, ensuring that persons with disabilities, women and youth must be at the table for decision-making. And data and accountability are integral to achieving the desired outcomes. Right, so we have to move from that lens. So this brings me to the close of my presentation. Thank you for your listening ears. Hand over to, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alexis. We are going straight into the panel. And if you would allow me to just briefly present a short bio of the panelists, the first panelist, and this is the Most Honorable Kerry-Ann Ifill. The Most Honorable Kerry-Ann Ifill is a trailblazing Caribbean leader in disability rights, governance, and inclusive development. Losing her sight at the age of 5, she has become a national symbol of resilience and achievement first publicly recognized on the 10-cent stamp issued during the International Year of the Disabled. Carrie-Ann broke barriers early in her academic journey, becoming the first totally blind student at Combermere Secondary School and later earning degrees and professional qualifications from the University of the West Indies, Durham Business School, and Urdeston Teachers Training College. Her career forms a decade of transformative work with the Barbados Council for the Disabled, where she championed advocacy, research, service, and innovation. In 2008, Carrie-Ann was appointed to the Senate of Barbados, and in 2012 made history as the youngest ever president of the Senate and the first woman and first person with a disability to hold that prestigious role. Her regional leadership includes serving as vice chair of the Commonwealth Disabled People's Forum, chair of the CARICOM Advisory Panel on Disabilities, and president of the Caribbean Council for the Blind. Carrie-Ann is the recipient of the Order of the Freedom of Barbados 2023 and the Anthony N. Sabga Caribbean Award for Excellence 2024, recognitions that underscore her enduring impact as a change maker and advocate for a more inclusive world. Right, so let's just move to the panel. So Jacinta, I believe it's okay. I can go ahead and start asking Miss Carrie-Ann Eiffel some questions.
No,
But you
we
had
first
to
have to share her video. She did a video.
Ah, got you. Okay,
So-
so let's go to that.
Good morning to everyone joining us across Grenada and the region. It is my honor to be with you today and to be part of this very important conversation as we continue to shape a Caribbean that reflects the dignity, leadership, and rights of all its people, including persons with disabilities. On the eve of International Day of Human Rights, we are reminded that all people have dignity, have a purpose, and can build our societies. Across our islands, we take pride in our creativity, resilience, and humanity. But the true measure of our progress lies in how well we ensure that every voice can be heard, talent recognized, and every citizen, including those of us with disabilities, has a seat in the rooms where decisions are made. Disability inclusion is not a social accessory. It is a core principle of democracy, equality, and justice. Three very important segments of any progressive society. As a woman who is blind, I have personally experienced both the visible and the invisible barriers placed before people with disabilities. But I have also experienced the possibilities that are unlocked when those barriers are removed, broken down, and systematically destroyed. When systems evolve, when communities welcome, and when opportunity is truly equal. These moments remind us disability does not limit leadership. Exclusion does. Leadership for persons with disabilities is not simply symbolic representation. It means being consulted at the very start, the beginning, the apex, the ending, all through the process of development. It means being engaged in democratic institutions and governance. It means holding positions where influence can shape national priorities. It means that when governments speak of the people, we are in the center of that picture, not at the margins of it. We must also acknowledge that women and girls with disabilities face compounded inequalities. They are less likely to finish school. We are more likely to experience violence, least likely to be represented in leadership, and yet they hold ideas, solutions, and strength that our region urgently, desperately needs. Gender equality will remain incomplete until women with disabilities rise with equal recognition, authority, and respect. To the young people joining us today, your leadership is not waiting somewhere in the future. It begins right here, right now. Whether you are shaping policy, building technology, telling your story on social media, or advocating in your school, your voice is already powerful. Our role as leaders is to create conditions where your leadership can grow. Accessible information, supportive mentors, opportunities to lead, not only attend. Systems designed with you, not for you. The Caribbean's future is counting on your courage, your strength, your ability. This is not Grenada's journey alone. From Bridgetown to Basseterre, Port-of-Spain to Georgetown, we share both the challenges and the vision. Inclusive education, decent work and entrepreneurship, representation in public office, equal access to sexual and reproductive health, protection from discrimination and violence. When one country advances, the region learns. When we advance together, the region transforms. If we are serious about inclusion, commitments must become structures. Clear national legislation and enforcement. Public budgets for accessibility. Not symbolic promises. Data collection that counts persons with disabilities fully. Communication designed for access. Captions, sign language, plain language. Youth and women with disabilities included on boards, councils, and task forces. Inclusion does not happen by chance. It is built by choice. Today, my call to every policymaker, educator, community leader, and advocate is this. Invite us in. Value our expertise. Invest in our leadership. Expect our excellence. All these will be critical. and to every man, woman, and young person with a disability listening. Your place is here. Your ideas are needed, and your leadership is already unfolding. Let us commit to a Caribbean where inclusion is not a favor, it is a foundation, where leadership is not limited by ability, but inspired by possibility. Thank you.
Thank you for that powerful presentation, Ms. Eichel. This point, though, I think I should just proceed with the introduction of panelist two, who is Dr. Erin Brown. Dr. Brown is a globally recognized leader in disability inclusion strategy advocacy and organizational transformation, proudly representing the Bahamas on the world stage. A Black woman with an above the knee limb difference, she embraces disability identity as power, visibility, and change. Currently, Dr. Brown serves as the Bahamas representative to the Commonwealth Disabled Peoples Forum, a fellow with the UN Internet Governance Forum's Dynamic Coalition on Accessibility and Disability, a board member of the Caribbean Disability Network. She leads as director of the Office of Disabilities and Compliance at the University of the Bahamas. She's a founder and principal of the Erin Brown Connects, the Caribbean's only disability-led consulting firm. A celebrated advocate and para-athlete, Dr. Brown made history as the first Black woman with a disability and first para-triathlete to christen a Royal Caribbean cruise ship, the Odyssey of the Seas, earning her the global moniker, Erin Bionic Brown. Okay, so Jacinta, should we proceed to the questions, or do you also have a presentation by Dr. Brown?
Dr. Brown is in the room, so
Yes.
she's ready.
She's going to present.
Oh
Yes.
gosh, it seems like she got kicked out again.
Okay, so
All right. We had some questions for Dr. Honorable Kerry-Ann Eichel. Can we proceed with those? Let me get,
sure,
I can get her back in the room.
sure. So, Ms. Eichel, what is one immediate reform that you believe that governments can make to accelerate disability inclusion?
She would have pre-loaded her recording.
So, okay.
You're not seeing it?
No, I do not see a recording here.
Okay, because she would have pre-loaded her responses.
Got you. I understand. I got you. Got
Yes.
No, I only have one video for her, from her.
It have two links. So one is the Q&A link, and one is her recording for the session.
Okay.
So I won't need to go through those questions for Ms. Eichel. That's fine.
Let me see
Okay,
if I
so
can
I
find.
have the Q&A. Do you
Right.
want me to
Good.
play it?
Yes, please.
Okay.
To start the disability inclusion dialogue appropriately, governments need to begin by embedding persons with disabilities in decision-making bodies and advisory roles. Representation must shape policy, not respond to policy after the fact. If we want to truly include girls and women with disabilities and promote them in leadership roles, education plus mentorship plus visibility. That's what we need to do to create the pathways and remove the stereotypes. Leadership grows where women are believed in and resourced. Now, when it comes to our young people and they want to be a part of the force that's going to drive inclusion, young people need to challenge discrimination, produce content that tells real stories, support accessibility in their classrooms and communities.
That's the question.
There are many regional partnerships and they play key roles. Caribbean collaboration allows us to scale innovation, align standards, and share evidence. And it also goes to ensure that no country is left behind. So, my message to public institutions would be this: inclusion isn't charity, it is a governance requirement. Fund accessibility and count persons with disabilities in data. Enforce policy. Those are the ways that I would say our societies can and must grow.
Colleagues, I want to apologize. We're having a little technical difficulties, one of our panelists, but also, English is it's a very interesting thing. I have guidance notes and a script in front of me, and I read it completely differently from how they were presented. So Carrie-Ann Eiffel would have, she recorded her opening statement, and then she recorded her responses to the panelist questions. And I'll share these with you. I should have shared them prior. She spoke a little bit on what she felt was an immediate need to create that reform, that change by governments to accelerate disability inclusion. Then she went on to address how we can better support women and girls with disabilities, but not just support them with women and girls with disabilities, but into leadership positions, or we can propel them into leadership positions. What can youth do right now to drive inclusion? What role that regional partnerships play? And also, what is the message to public institutions? And I think she spoke quite a bit on data as well. Jacinta, I don't know if the panelist, Dr. Brown, is having some challenges. I'm not sure she's back. I don't think so. But I think at this point in time, sorry, Jacinta?
So Dr. Brown said they're experiencing some bad weather, so connectivity is a no-go at this juncture. However, she said she will record and send it, and what we will do is share that with our participants after, because you would have been registered. We would share the participation, and you still would have opportunity to ask your questions thereafter. But we have to proceed because right now I'm not getting her at all.
Right.
So
Right.
we need to proceed.
Okay. So you can drop your questions in the chat, and we'll just move along since we don't have any of the panelists with us right now. And right now we're welcoming Deansha Edwards. I call her my colleague. We work very well together. Deansha is with the Division of Gender and Family Affairs in the Ministry of Social Development and Gender Affairs in Grenada, and she's going to provide a youth reflection. So we really want to welcome the voice of a young advocate with disability. I don't know if we have a recording for this as well, but we welcome Deansha.
Were you able to get the video that we did for the UNRCO's office?
No. It keeps showing up different to what, I'm not sure why. I suppose I'm having some challenges as well with the internet.
Can you play the inclusion for all video wise? I see if I can locate it on my end, please.
Disability inclusion means ensuring everyone, regardless of ability, can participate fully in society. At school, at work, and in our communities, inclusion creates belonging. Disabilities can be physical, sensory, cognitive, or mental health related, and not all are visible. Some people live with conditions you can't see, but that still affect daily life. Barriers, physical, digital, and attitudinal, can make it difficult for people with disabilities to access buildings, technology, or even fair treatment. Inclusion means removing barriers and creating environments where everyone can thrive through ramps, captions, adaptive tools, and sign language communication. Each of us can make a difference. We can advocate for accessibility, learn and listen, hire inclusively, and support one another. Inclusion begins with action. Together we can build a world where everyone belongs, because inclusion is not a favor, it's a right. Disability inclusion means ensuring everyone, regardless of ability, can participate fully in society. At school, at work, and in our communities, inclusion creates belonging. Disabilities can be physical, sensory, cognitive, or mental health related, and not all are visible. Some people live with conditions you can't see, but that still affect daily life. Barriers, physical, digital, and attitudinal, can make it difficult for people with disabilities to access buildings, technology, or even fair treatment. Inclusion means removing barriers and creating environments where everyone can thrive through ramps, captions, adaptive tools, and sign language communication. Each of us can make a difference. We can advocate for accessibility, learn and listen, hire inclusively, and support one another. Inclusion begins with action. Together we can build a world where everyone belongs, because inclusion is not a favor, it's a right.
So the answer is ready.
Diancha, feel free to go ahead whenever you're ready. Open your mic and proceed.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Diancha.
Okay, so my name is Diancha Edwards, and I'm a young advocate with hearing impairment and speech impediment. Being a part of my work environment has meant more to me than I can fully express. For a long time, I felt like my voice was either too quiet or too easily overlooked. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because the world wasn't always designed to listen. Here in this space, my voice matters. I've never been excluded, which makes me feel safe, seen, and valued. Being a part of this initiative has shown me what true inclusion looks like. My coworkers took the time to understand my needs, to make sure communication was accessible, and that gave me confidence to speak up. Instead of focusing on my disability, they focused on my abilities, my ideas, and my desire to help create change. Oh my God, give me 1 minute.
You got this. You're good. You're good. Breathe.
Okay. This experience has helped me grow, not just personally, but also as an advocate. I'm no longer scared or have to hide my disability to feel or look normal. This also reminds me that inclusion isn't just about special treatment, but about creating an environment where everyone can participate fully and equally. I am proud to be a part of this work and allowing my journey to inspire others with disability to stand tall, speak out, and claim their spaces. Because we all deserve to belong, to be respected, and to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Diancha, for sharing with us. Much appreciated.
Let's do the applause using sign language. Hey, sign language time. Thank you, Diancha.
I don't know, Ms. Alexis, if we have time for a sharing or two, or if you want to proceed directly to the key takeaways and call to action. We're running a little bit behind time, but
So we'll have to do the poll at another time when we get the other videos.
Mhm.
So we will send it and do that. So if we could invite, oh gosh, I would not ever remember to turn on video. We can invite anybody who wants to make any contribution. This is an ample
opportune
opportunity.
moment. Oh,
Yes.
Apple.
To do this. So please.
And I think even if you want to speak a little bit about some of the work that you're doing or some of the gaps that you might be noticing in work that's been done, that would help all of us working in that area to do better.
Yes, it would. And also, if we can ask for a group photo, if we could turn on the cameras before we emit the dialogue, if we could turn on the cameras and do a group photo, it would be fantastic.
Maybe we can get ready to do that now. While people are thinking about what it is they may want to say.
Okay.
And some people are not camera ready.
That's okay. We'll take the name.
Thank you.
So oh God, I have to remember to turn on the mic. We invite questions, comments, feedback from our partners in the room to share with us what work you've been doing in terms of disability inclusion and what you think we can be doing to push the agenda of inclusion forward.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Not sure who's speaking, but please, if go ahead.
Can I speak?
Yes, please. Please go ahead.
Good morning again, everybody. My name is Christy Joseph, an advocate with the Commonwealth Youth Disabled People's Forum. I'm the youth ambassador for the National Council of and for Persons with Disabilities in St. Lucia. Well, it's my first time actually hearing about Uplift International. I'm quite young, and I recently started to get myself involved with a lot of campaigning and disability inclusion in my country. And I must say that St. Lucia, we have a lot of work to do. I mean, as you guys may know, it does have a little over 4.5 years since we got our disability, Ministry for Persons with Disabilities, and things are, well, we're going somewhere.
Thank you.
And I must,
Christy, go ahead.
Sorry,
go ahead. Go
and
ahead.
I just want to know if we have the organization in St. Lucia, and how can I join? How can I be a part of it? And I look forward to attending more meetings like this, and I hope that I can contribute, and I hope to be a part of any other upcoming meetings that we may have.
Thank you, Christy. If I understood you correctly or clearly, I believe you're asking if there are any organizations that you can join where you can learn more about persons with disabilities and the work that's been done to support persons with disabilities. I don't know if there's anybody here who wants to, and I think you said you're a part of your Council for the Disabled in St. Lucia. I don't know if I heard you right, which is a great start. If that's the case, anybody wants to come in here?
If I may.
That's good. Please do.
Okay, there is a Seroptimus International St. Lucie So if you give the young lady's information, I could send her that information, because there is a group that was formally initiated in St. Lucia, and they're very new. So they're about maybe 3 months old, or could be older, maybe 6 months by now. So I can get some information for her if she wants to be part of the program and work that we do as Soroptimist. And SI St. Lucie will be doing this similar work. So I can give her that information. Just take the information from her, and I could share what I have with her. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would really like that. Thank you very much.
I will drop in the chat for those who have access to it, the email address for the Soroptimist International Grenada. And even if you are not based here, we can always extend that. Anyone else? We probably take one more and then we move on with the agenda. Okay. I noticed that, the St. Lucia Soroptimist Club. Great. If we could get maybe a link to the St. Lucia Soroptimist Club or an email, that would be great. We can drop it. Oh, Soroptimist International St. Lucie. Christy, I don't know if there's an email address we can drop in the chat. That would be great. Okay, so I think we can move along. Thank you so much, Christy Joseph, for sharing. I think we've dropped a few bits of contact information, but if this chat is not accessible to you, please feel free to reach out to us, any one of us in any other way that you can. But we have dropped some information in the chat. At this point, I want to welcome Lydia Calise of the. Sorry?
1 minute, please. I just got the presentation from Erin, so I just want to share it.
Please do.
She said that it is still problematic in terms of erratic, so she can't connect consistently.
Okay, no problem. Would you like me to go through the questions again, or just let it run? Is it a statement or is it responses?
It's a statement, so let me
Okay, great, no problem.
Get it to you ASAP. We have to make miracles happen. Would you be able to read it? Or would you even want me to read it?
1 second, let me just pull it up. I have it here. The email has been playing up, but I think I can read it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
From Dr. Erin Brown. Title, Let's Talk Access, Building Bridges for Inclusive Advocacy Across the Caribbean. I want to begin not with data, but with gratitude. Thank you for showing up for this work. This space is more than a webinar. It's a platform to shape what inclusion looks like in our region. I'm not here to deliver a lecture. I'm here to invite dialogue. I'll share a few reflections, but more importantly, I'll invite your voice into the conversation. Let's get started together. What's holding us back? Let's begin with a simple question for reflection. What's one barrier to inclusion you've seen or experienced that continues to frustrate you? Feel free to drop it in the chat as I'm speaking and conveying Dr. Brown's remarks. Feel free to drop it in the chat. Now, let me ground us in some real gaps. We still don't have updated disability data in over half the region. Our organizations of persons with disabilities, OPDs, are doing heavy lifting without steady funding. Most gender-based violence and health responses exclude persons with disabilities.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
And our policies,
Look.
too many still talk about us, not with us. But here's the power. We know what needs to change. What's working? Before we talk strategy, let's honor the wins. If you know of a program that centered lived experience and led to real change, share it. Let me lift a few. The Bahamas Disabled Entrepreneurs Initiative, 40+ disabled-led businesses launched with disabled mentor support and 10K grant opportunities. Excuse me. Advocacy Grenada, Inc. and Michelle Brathwaite, advancing grassroots disability and gender rights. The Caribbean Disability Network Conference, uniting DPO and OPDs from across the region. Ganesh Singh and Rosemary Ramiti in Guyana, Murphalus James in St. Lucia, models of DPO and OPD leadership. These aren't stories of charity. They're blueprints for power sharing. How do we build together? Here's where we lean in. What makes a good partnership? What helps you trust, collaborate, and follow through? To build effective advocacy coalitions, we need joint statements from DPOs and OPDs, women's rights organizations, and civil society organizations. Shared advocacy campaigns rooted in lived experience, too. 3, resources that go beyond one-off workshops. 4, gender balance, disability-led steering groups. 5, let's not just build bridges, we need to walk across them together. 6, let's ask better questions. I don't want to end with answers, I want to leave us with questions. How are we measuring success beyond checkboxes? Success for me is not how many people are attending the work, it's not how many people are attending the meeting or how many policies got printed. Success is when a blind woman in Abaco can read the same disaster notice as everyone else at the same time. When a young man with autism in Grenada walks into a courtroom and knows his communication methods will be respected. That's the shift from compliance to experience. So we must measure success by who is impacted, not just included, whether systems changed, not just speeches made, and if our communities feel safer, stronger, and more heard, not just surveyed. Let's move from box ticking to barrier removing. Where are the girls with disabilities in our leadership pipelines? Let's be honest, they're often invisible, and that's not their fault, it's ours. Girls and young women with disabilities are missing from youth parliaments, school prefect boards, national volunteer programs. Why? Because we failed to design those pipelines to fit them. Here's what we can do. Start mentorship programs led by women with disabilities, create accessible leadership and public speaking trainings, ensure gender and disability quotas in youth programs are not optional, they're policy. Invite girls with disabilities into boardrooms, not just into awareness campaigns. Representation should not be a favor, it should be a function of justice. Are we investing in OPDs as partners or just inviting them to panels? I've said it before, don't tokenize us, trust us. Panels are nice, partnerships are power, and we need to move from visibility to viability for organizations of persons with disabilities. True investment means funding core operations of DPOs, not just project-based work. Giving OPDs a seat before the budget is set, not after. Including OPDs in monitoring and evaluation, not just in feedback forms. Supporting training in data collection, grant writing, and leadership development. If our OPDs collapse, the whole inclusion effort falls with them. So let's not just showcase them, let's resource them. Friends, there's no inclusion without communication, and there's no communication without trust. Let's make our advocacy intersectional, gender conscious, and rooted in lived experience. The future is not inclusive unless it is co-created with us, for us, by us. I see words like access, trust, funding, representation, action, and all of them are spot on. But if I had to offer just one word to hold us accountable, it would be co-creation. Because co-creation means we're not just being heard, we're being hired, not just invited, we're involved, not just represented, we're resourced. Co-creation says this policy, this campaign, this movement was built with us in the room. We stayed at the table until the last budget line was written. Excuse me. That's the difference between advocacy and impact. So as we close, let's remember, we are not beneficiaries. We are blueprint builders. Thank you. Let's keep building this future together. Let's keep talking. Let's make it real. Thank you for your time, support, and consideration. From Dr. Erin Brown. Please allow me to move to the summary of key takeaways. Yes, Jacinta, very powerful words as well. Please allow me to move to the summary of key takeaways, which will be led by Lydia Alexis of the Division of Gender and Family Affairs. Ms. Alexis, over to you.
Ms. Caliste, over to you.
Sorry, Ms. Caliste. Correct.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Ms. Sandy. So some of the key takeaways from today's discussion or presentation is that disability inclusion is a human right obligation, a governance requirement, and a cornerstone for true equality in the Caribbean. Real progress doesn't depend on meaningful participation of persons with disabilities. Real progress depends on meaningful participation of persons with disability, especially our young women and girls, in the decision-making process and leadership. In terms of the government institutions, as Ms. Ife would have emphasized, let us move beyond symbolic inclusion and commit to structure enforceable actions such as funding accessibility, collecting accurate data, and enforcing disability policies. In terms of regional, in terms of the roles and strengthening those accessibility, shaping legislation, challenging stereotypes, and ensuring that no community or country is left behind. As Dr. Erin Brown words would have also emphasized co-creation. It should be with us and not about us. Inclusion cannot be optional, charitable, or symbolic. It must be systematic, funded, enforced, and co-created with persons with disability, so that every individual can lead, participate, and contribute, and strive in an equitable Caribbean society. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Caliste. Much appreciated. I believe we now have an executive member of Soroptimist International Grenada who will be doing the closing remarks. And I invite you to present those remarks at this time. And as we wait for that, I just want to thank the team, Ms. Alexis, Soroptimist International Grenada, the Division of Gender and Family Affairs, for allowing me this opportunity to be a part of this dialogue. I really appreciate the involvement. It is something that I really love, the topic in particular. So thank you, and I appreciate the invitation. Ms. Alexis, will you be doing the closing remark? Or is there someone joining us?
Ms. Campbell.
Hi, good morning. So good morning to everyone. All protocols observed. Thank you. I just wanted to first acknowledge and express our gratitude for each and every speaker, every participant, and every panelist today. I'm sure not for just myself, but it was a thoughtful, thought-provoking, and informational session. As a proud woman who has many different disabilities, It's always heartwarming to see us being put into the main center and the main light. Again, I have to thank our organization, Optimus International, for allowing such an impactful event. I thank all of our partners, CUSO International, the United Nations, the Barbados and Eastern Caribbean Office, and any other partner that I might not have mentioned by name. I thank you not only for your investment of time, of your energy, but your commitment to driving the change that we so definitely need, not only in our region, but globally. Gender equality and disability inclusion is not a global talking point for no reason. It's imperative that we continue to champion the cause and to intentionally include all members of society into our work in society. Again, I want to express my continued gratitude and encourage all persons who are involved in this webinar in any capacity to not take this as the end, but as the beginning. I challenge you to get involved with any of the multiple organizations that were mentioned today, like Advocacy Inc. Grenada, and see how you can not only serve your community, but serve your country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Jacinta, over to you if you have any final words as we close.
I thank you all for attending. I know some of us had to depart because they had another engagement. Thank you for your patience for waiting for us to start and allowing us to work through bugs that popped up that we did not prepare for, but popped up, and we were able to autocorrect and stay the path to achieve the outcomes that we're looking for. This is not a tick the box. This is a step, as Ms. Campbell would have indicated. This is a continued step in the direction that we are pushing, which is to push disability inclusion in the most meaningful way. We will be, the webinar was live streamed, so therefore we will share information on where you can go to view, continued viewing, and keep on pushing the agenda. And we will share the presentations and responses. If you have any questions, please, for the panelists, because they were unfortunately not able to be with us live, but please put it in and we will get the responses to you thereafter. So we have basically a week up till next week to take any further responses, and we'll be sharing a poll as well with you for your feedback as well. So thank you again, and do enjoy the rest of your day. I noted and saw that Peter Mokwe was with us, UNDP representation. So I just wanted to say hello to Peter as well for joining us, and thank you so much. So everyone, do have a wonderful day and do take care now. All right, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Have a good one, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.